Hi everybody, my name is Ross the Alcheminiaturist, and today I wanted to take my first few steps into the world of Mordheim. Now, Mordheim itself has been kind of discontinued by Games Workshop, but there exists online, and here in my own city, a very dedicated group of people who still keep the spirit of Mordheim alive. A couple weeks ago, I was able to go and witness what they do and how they play, and it made me want to play with them. But the only problem is, I don't have a warband. So I figured, why not make one? And I might as well make one from my favorite army, the Skaven. So let's get into it, shall we? Before I go into Mordheim, I'm just going to quickly go over what materials I used for this build. For starters, I bought an old Chaos War Shrine from a local bits swap meet about a month ago, just a couple of weeks before I was able to catch a game of Mordheim at my favorite local game store. Honestly, I really like grabbing old models as conversion fuel. I feel less guilty about using part of that kit and chopping it into pieces as opposed to a kit that I have purchased. With buying kits, I get the feeling of, oh no, I need to build this properly, because if I don't, what happens if I mess it up? Will I have wasted my money? But swap meets kind of delete that thought from my brain, as I didn't pay full price for the models, so anything I get out of the kit is just at full value, no matter what. Anyways, I digest. As you see, the model I want is the Shrine Bearer. This deformed, mutated human has probably lost the favor of one or all of the gods that they serve, and, as a punishment, was warped to serve a new, more nefarious purpose. After I got him, I raided my Skaven bits box as, like I said before, this will be part of my Skaven warband. I grabbed, in no particular order, a couple different heads, a warp fire projector, a couple of grind fist drill bits, a shock gauntlet middle piece, a thumb from a vermin lord, a marble, a warp lightning cannon part, and a Wayland Yutani shipping box. If I miss something, that's okay, things happen. I will also say that I don't end up using the marble, thumb, or crate, just in case you were wondering where they went. Now, for the next part, I just cleaned down the chaos symbol on his back. While Skaven are chaos, they aren't really part of chaos like the other worshippers to the dark gods are. As I go through building the model, I am just gonna start talking about Mordheim. First published in 1999, it marketed itself as a skirmish-style game as opposed to the rank and file game that Warhammer Fantasy was at that point. Mordheim is set in the city of Mordheim after a comet had fallen into the city, causing wanton destruction, panic, and chaos. The comet was comprised of a material known as Weirdstone. Weirdstone itself is just a different name for Warpstone, the cornerstone of all Skaven life, culture, and warfare. Players would control a warband made up from a chosen faction, and battle other warbands for control over the scattered pieces of Weirdstone. When Mordheim was originally published, the warbands were few, comprising of 5 different human warbands: the Marienburgers, Mittelheimers, Recklanders, Sisters of Sigmar, and Witch Hunters, the Cult of the Possessed, a Chaos warband, the Undead, and last but definitely not least, Skaven. 3 years later, in 2002, Games Workshop released a Mordheim annual that saw 5 more warbands. 3 human ones, the Averlanders, Kelsevites, and Ostlanders, Dwarf Treasure Hunters, and the Orc Mob. 2 years after that, Games Workshop released a supplemental for Mordheim called Empire in Flames. That then added 2 more warbands, this time one for Chaos, called the Carnival of Chaos, and the Beastman Raiders, which, as you can guess, is a Beastman warband. This brought the total, quote, official warbands, end quote, to a total of 15 to choose from. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't more warbands. In fact, there are a plethora of warbands that you can choose from, all graded differently, to add to Mordheim's flavor. In 2004, when Games Workshop seemed to have discontinued support for Mordheim, a small community kept the game alive by continuing to play the game themselves, with rules that would no longer see any more updates. These days, anyone can find rules, both official and community tweaked and balanced, on websites like broheim.com. Not only does Broheim have the official play rules from Games Workshop, but they also have a more up-to-date rulebook, as well as additional rules as created by Tuomas Pirinen, as published on the Mordheim Facebook group. Going back to a previous point of Broheim's, I had mentioned that they had curated an exhaustive list of all the warbands, sorted into 6 categories. Those 6 categories are official, published by Games Workshop via rulebooks or through Fnatic magazine, their magazine for more specialized games; unofficial, but still released by Games Workshop and /or Fnatic; experimental, not released by Games Workshop or Fnatic, but were made / approved by people who had made official or unofficial warbands; reliable, fan-made and fan-tested. This should also work well with the official, unofficial, and experimental categories; supplemental, best used for the campaign setting that they're found to be a part of; and finally, draft, the newest rules that have not gone through the rigors that the other categories have, and therefore may not be as thoroughly thought out and balanced as the rest of them. Now, with all that said and set, I can talk about this model and my plans for it. The 100% Games Workshop official category of warbands has a Skaven warband, like I had previously said. Now, I don't know if you know this, but I kind of like the Skaven. Only slightly and kind of in passing, to be honest. Anyway, in Mordheim, you start with an amount of points, called gold crowns, to be able to spend on your warband. This amount is 500. So I have 500 gold crowns to spend on this warband, and as this series continues, I will be keeping a running total of everything I spend on this warband so that I don't go over the spending limit at all. Also, the warband cannot contain less than 3 models, but it also cannot contain more than 20. These are most of the guidelines for making your Skaven warband, apart from the fact that some warriors can't have certain weapons, but at this current moment, that doesn't matter. Okay. We've gone over the spending and the model count. I think we can finally get to the actual models that we can have in this warband. Those models, or warriors, are an assassin adept. Your warband must have one of these, but only one. He's your leader. A clan Eshin sorcerer. You can have one of these guys, especially if you want to be able to cast spells. Black Skaven. You can have up to 2. Night Runners, you can also have up to 2. Verminkin, due to their nature of being small and disposable, you can have any number of them. Giant Rats, which are dog-sized rats, and as long as you have the gold crowns in the space, you can have them. And finally, the Rat Ogre. You may only have one of these models per warband. So, for this first model of my warband, I chose the Rat Ogre for a whopping 220 gold crowns. The good news is they have no war gear that you can buy for them. You just buy them and they're good to go. So we're all good on that aspect. Now, I wanted to make this Rat Ogre feel more like the new Rat Ogres, but I also didn't want it to look like the same Rat Ogre that you can just buy straight off the shelf right now. So I came up with a good idea that this one was more of a prototype / weird version of a Rat Ogre. Rat Ogres are crossbreed amalgamation weird flesh things that are different horrendous creatures that have been crossbred and mutated with skaven. So I decided that this one would take whatever was given to it due to injury or disaster and sewn back onto it, and maybe even have some warpstone. Sorry, I meant weirdstone, to make any flesh attached to it fuse more properly together so that that transplant looked better and took well to the rest of the body. I do want to say that I am sorry for the amount that I have been talking about Mordheim. It has been a fascination of mine since I was a young boy back when I went to see my family in England, and I had a white dwarf that showed it in there. I want to apologize because I didn't get to how I had painted everything. It will be in the description, and if you really want to follow along, you can see all of the paints in the background. But it's on to the beauty shots, and I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for letting me talk. Thank you for listening to this weird audio essay of mine. Let me know if this is a thing that you like or not. I am still experimenting a little bit with my style of how I want to present these videos. So any feedback that you have is greatly appreciated. Again, thank you for being here. If you're new, please like, comment, and maybe even subscribe. All three really help me. And I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.